all at the same time. You know, I'm gonna organize that.
Good afternoon, and thanks so much for joining us today for a discussion of the Residential Energy Code Field Study RFPs that SEEA has issued for fieldwork in both Louisiana and Georgia. I want to let you know that a couple housekeeping issues. We're going to run through some slides today to start off to just do an overview of what is a field study and the expectations for the field study teams, little mechanics of the RFP. Also, we're going to record this conference meeting and we'll post it on our field study website. So if you miss some notes, you can always go back and get more information there. Also, because we're recording, if you don't want your voice recorded, but you want to ask some questions, please put your questions in the Q&A function, and our team will be monitoring the Q&A. We're going to save, at least the last half hour of this 1 hour session for questions and answers. So we want to make sure we get all your questions answered. And finally, some of you have already asked us a few questions through our fieldstudy@seealliance.org email address, and we're going to be combining answers to those as well as questions that get asked today into an FAQ that we'll update periodically, and we'll also post that on our SEEA website. So with that intro, let's jump into it and go to the next slide, please. Okay, so I already gave you a little overview of our agenda today. We're going to first talk about what is a residential energy code field study. For those of you who have not been scouring the SEEA and the Department of Energy and Pacific Northwest National Lab websites. We'll talk about the sampling plans that have been chosen for Georgia and Louisiana and what that means. We'll talk about what does data collection mean for the sampling plans that we chose. Really, what are going to be the expectations of the data collection teams. And then, as I mentioned, we'll talk about the RFP itself and the budget template that was provided. And I'll tell you now that we have recognized that there was an error in the budget template that was on the website, the first one. And so we updated it this morning. So if you've already downloaded the budget template, I encourage you after our discussion today to please go back to our website and download the latest and greatest budget template. The error was in the calculation of the travel costs. So let's go to the next slide, please. So a little bit about SEEA, so you'll understand why we're doing this. Our mission is to optimize the use and impact of energy to enhance the quality of life in the Southeast. We work across 12 states, 11 in the Southeast, plus Hawaii, plus 5 island territories. And our work is really grounded in the communities in which we serve. And building energy codes obviously play a huge role in the lives and the livelihoods of those communities, both in terms of the residents and how the buildings impact their lives, as well as the building professionals whose lives are involved in either building the homes, maintaining the homes, or being part of the building code inspection workforce. So let's go to the next slide. So, introduction to the field studies. Building energy code field studies are designed to kind of take the temperature of what is the status quo for building, in this case it's residential building, in a state. think of it like going to the doctor to get a checkup. It's probably not your favorite thing to do, but it's something that it's a good idea to do for most of us on a yearly basis. We want to know how we're doing. And in case we need to make any changes, get some direction on those changes. And that's exactly what we're doing here in Georgia and Louisiana. We're going to be going into homes that are under construction and taking a measure of what is the status quo of building. And there are specific methods that have been kind of tried and true over years. They've been iterated on that we're going to use in these two states and to look at single family residential construction. So these are comprehensive. We're going to look at homes during 2 stages of construction. We're going to do pre-drywall, where, you know, like in this image, where we can see the insulation, we can see what's going on behind the walls. And then we're going to do final inspections, where we can do some building performance testing in these homes. So there are a few essential study components to understand as you're thinking through how you would participate in this process. The first to know is the RFP contains what's called a sample plan. I've used that word as well. And when we talk about a sample, that's one complete data set. But you can't get a complete data set on a home in just one visit, right? Because you need to both see behind the walls, and you need to also be able to do the building performance testing. So to get a complete data set requires at least 2 visits to 2 separate homes. So any individual home only gets 1 single visit. Each sample consists of at least 2 homes. So it consists of at least a pre-drywall inspection and at least 1 final inspection. All the data that you collect is considered anonymous in terms of the jurisdiction that it comes from, the name of the builder, even the address is kept private between your data and SEEA. That data does not get shared beyond SEEA. So, and that's one thing that is really important to us in terms of being able to build trust with the building community, that this really is being done for their good, in essence, right? This is part of the checkup. It's not, you know, this isn't Weight Watchers where you have to weigh in front of everybody. This is something that's being done, and the data is kept private, really. We also, SEEA has some goals beyond the standard data that is collected for these energy code field studies related to energy equity, advanced building technologies. For instance, we're going to ask the field study teams to collect data on whether or not the homes have EV charging infrastructure, whether or not they are all electric, and several other items in addition to the standard items that are collected in these studies. And finally, the end result, the outcome from this work is not just where we are, but it gives direction to the entire teams in Louisiana and Georgia on how to create and target education and technical assistance to builders, to the trades, and to code officials, so that we continue to raise the level of building across the professions. So really the goals, and we've touched on this, the goals are: 1, collect data, and the data helps us tell a story, and it also helps identify these gaps. And the end result for all of this really goes back to SEEA's mission, which is to improve the quality of life, increase energy savings, and reduced energy costs for communities and households. This image here is demonstrates the residential energy code field studies that have been done in the past. You'll see that Georgia has had one previously, but that one was done, and there were actually two, and they were done under prior energy codes. So we don't know how the current energy code is working in Georgia, and Louisiana has never had one in the past. So this will be a new experience for the community in Louisiana, and it'll be a brand new data for Louisiana as well. So what is the timeline for this? We're obviously currently in the RFP phase. The end of the RFP phase is the end of August. We expect to spend a short while in September reviewing the responses to the RFP, and our goal is to be under contract and to begin working in the field with the data collection team in teams in Georgia and Louisiana in October, and for it to be approximately a 12-month exercise to collect all of the data necessary in both states. Next slide. So sample plans. I've used that word several times. Let's talk about what is a sample plan. Obviously, we can't go into every house that's under construction in any state or even in any county or jurisdiction. So PNNL has devised a statistically significant method for choosing the number of homes as well as the location of homes to sample, such that our energy calculations in the end will be statistically significant. This image is the sample plan that we've chosen for Louisiana. It includes, in the table, it includes the names of the parishes and the number of samples that need to be collected. And this is the minimum number, the number of samples that need to be collected in each parish. For each one of those samples represents at least 2 visits, a pre-drywall visit and a final visit to a home in each one of those parishes. And this is a similar image for Georgia. And you can see in both of them that it's a mix of urban and rural. We tried to choose sampling plans that had across different climate zones and also different parts of the state, so that we do get some variety in the types of homes and different impacts. We also applied a few other metrics to our decision-making process as well. And this is the table, and these are also in the RFP. This is the table that includes the counties and the number of samples for Georgia. So, data collection. The data that is required to be collected, there are kind of 2 levels of the methodology, and this methodology is very there's a method to the madness, I'll put it that way. There is a formal document that lays out the methodology, both for the data collection as well as the data analysis. And there, as I mentioned, each sample requires at least 2 tests, a pre-drywall and a final, and the final inspection does require a blower door test and duct leakage tests of all of the duct systems in the house. And again, no builder or contractor, code official, no jurisdiction is going to be identified in the data SEEA shares externally. And that's really important to building the types of relationships that are going to be necessary to gain entry to these homes. So there are 7 key data points that are absolutely required for each one of the samples. And they're listed on this slide. I won't read them to you. There are a few things you'll probably notice when you look at these key data points. For instance, envelope leakage, ACH 50, is one of these data points. Well, because y'all do this for a living, you know that really is a calculated number. So not only do you need a blower door test result, but you also need a building volume in order to do that. So it's a little more than 7 key items. In addition to the 7 key items, we also ask that you collect other data that is visible to you. You know, if you see the HVAC system, if it's set in place, take a picture of the label. We absolutely want the efficiency of the HVAC system and the water heater. These sorts of things are really important to being able to carefully and clearly describe the efficiency of the homes and whether or not they are meeting or even beating the current energy code. Next slide. This image, and I don't expect that you can read it, but we wanted to put it in here in case you wanted to go back and take a look later for your reference. This is an image of part of the data collection form. It's an Excel data collection form where the data collector is going to need to report the data to us. And it includes the part of the code where the data can be found. For instance, you know, the air barrier and the thermal barrier and contact, that sort of thing. Well, it tells you where in the code to go for that. And then you enter in your findings. You can put comments. And as I mentioned, it's often really helpful to also take pictures as you're going through a house. This is probably something that you do already, but take pictures so that we can understand what you saw, and so that if there are any questions, we can all go back and take a look later. Next slide, please. I wanted to give you all an example of the budget template, because I know it's, you know, it has its own format. You may not have filled out a budget like this before. So here's an example, and this goes to the, you know, filling out the RFP itself. This is an example of the labor tab in the budget template where, and you know, this is just me making up numbers, so please use the numbers that make sense for you. And if you've got questions about this, let's talk about it in the Q&A section. I made up a company, Best Field Study Inc., who is also going to have a subcontractor. Inspections Are Us, and they both have some employees, and I put in their labor rates and their hours for a number of different tasks. And you can see how it all kind of adds up together. The hours and the rates come to, you know, subtotals for each task, and then end up in a total expense there in the bottom right corner. And if we go to the next tab, well, we can talk about what the travel slide looks like too. We can talk about what the travel slide the travel tab looks like too, if you have questions when we get to the Q&A section. Okay. Oh, this is the travel tab. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah. So here's an example of the travel tab, and 2 things to know. One is that for the Louisiana team is planning a code convening in, is it September? Yeah, in September. And if you are bidding on Louisiana, I would like for you to plan to go to the send at least one person to the Louisiana code convening, because that'll be really important to meet all the partners there and to get socialized with the team there. So that's what that's on that row 6, task 1. And there's an example of including lodging. I assumed you would drive. That may not be true. And I gave you 1 day of per diem. For that one, I actually did go to the GSA website and I looked up the rates. So that one is correct. For the next row, row 7, I just did an example of a kind of a general general amount of mileage for driving around in southern Louisiana, assuming you depart from, if you're located in New Orleans and you're going to be driving to do field inspections in southern Louisiana, and you're going to be on the road for 7 days, or I'm sorry, 10 days. You put in some lodging, vehicle travel based on the number of miles you think you'll travel, and per diem, and the formula comes up with a cost per trip. So hopefully that all makes sense, especially now that we've got the formulas working correctly. But please feel free to ask any questions. Okay, so we are in the submission period. If you've already written your RFP response and your budget, you can send it in anytime. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing your responses at the end of the month. As I mentioned, we will be, and I may have misspoken earlier. Otherwise, we'll be spending early August reviewing the responses that we got, and we'll be back in touch with you, and then hopefully under contract in the late summer, because we're very excited to get going in both states. So the project scope is really broken down into has 3 components: the data gathering and submission component, and that's really the bulk of the work. But there's also a stakeholder engagement component, which is important to socialize this project with stakeholders. And we have found that in other projects that gaining entrance to these homes is much easier when one develops relationships with local jurisdictions, with larger home builders, and other stakeholders who can share information and advocate on your behalf. So building goodwill is very important, and developing and maintaining those relationships. And then finally, the data analysis and reporting. As I mentioned, there are some numbers that will need to be calculated. No one will be doing energy models or any kind of statistical analysis. That's our job and our partners' jobs. But the expectation is that the field team will do their internal quality assurance, and that the data that we receive, we will also be doing some quality assurance as well. But we'll receive good data. It's going to all make sense, and we'll be able to do our reporting to our funder, which is the Department of Energy, on a timely basis. So what does the submission look like? We'd like a cover page, and I'm not going to go into the details because they are in the RFP. But a cover page, a declaration of your qualifications. Just, let us know that you're ready and willing to do the work. Statements of qualifications describing all the great qualifications for you and your team. And if your team does include more than one organization, we would like letters from those other organizations attesting to their willingness and ability to partner on the team. And then also a budget, using the budget template that was provided. We have established this scoring criteria, which it's also in the RFP. Feel free to ask any questions about this, but it's pretty simple and straightforward. We've already talked about the budget, so I think we can skip over that. And let's open it up for Q&A. And again, we can it looks like we might have a few questions in the Q&A and some more coming in. And you can also ask use your voice to ask a question too, if you would want.
I believe they have to raise their hand and we can maybe unmute them. Somebody might have to be our guinea pig.
Okay. So I see one question, which is, are the presented sample plans fixed, or is SEEA open to altering those sample locations? So the sample plans are fixed. There's actually been a lot of analysis and vetting of both of these sample plans through project strategic advisory committees, as well as some data analysis that's gone into them. For the purpose of this exercise, the apples to apples of the bids, they are fixed, and yeah, they're fixed, and the sample number is 63. One thing I didn't talk about, but I'll mention it here, is, it's not uncommon for one to do let's say you're doing a pre-drywall and they haven't insulated the attic yet. Well, you still need that attic insulation value. So there could be times where you may need to, go find another data point somewhere, which is why we asked you to create your budget based on 70 samples instead of 63, just because, things happen. This is real life in real houses. And we feel like that's a more reasonable, based on experience, number of homes to plan for. Okay. Can we be able... There is a question that I do not understand. So I'm going to ask my friends here. I'm going to skip it and maybe go back. Okay. So there's a question, is this for data collection only, or will the team be responsible for building recruitment as well? So we do have a separate teammate who is going to be doing a circuit rider activity, which is going to be working on building buy-in within the community. The data collection team is going to be responsible for identifying specific homes and gaining entrance to those specific homes. I hope that answers the question. If not, let us know. Yeah, and there's another question. In the past, we've had separate contractors for field data collection and stakeholder engagement. Will there be a separate organization assisting stakeholder engagement? Yes, there is a separate organization in both states assisting with stakeholder engagement. There's a question. It seems the proposer is responsible for finding homes to conduct data collection. Is this correct? If so, is there any support or are there resources SEEA will provide to identify homes for data collection? As I mentioned, we do have partners who will be working on the stakeholder engagement function. We also have learned through our own experience and through that of partners some kind of tips and tricks that we will share to identify homes and to get permission to assess them. We will also provide whatever we can to the data collection team. In the past, we have provided business cards and one-page flyers, polo shirts, clipboards, which some people find are helpful and some people find in some communities they're not helpful. So it really will be up to the data collection team working with us to identify what makes sense for them and for the communities they're working in to build that rapport and to get entrance into the homes. Can the builder disallow taking pictures or collecting data? The builder can disallow anything that they want, including access into the homes. So that's why it's really important to emphasize that everything is anonymous. Nothing will come back to bite them. And, you know, hopefully we've seen in the past that by keeping things kind of, I don't know, loose and casual, really, the most builders are willing to allow entry, and some don't. It's all, you know, it depends on the rapport that can be built. Can you provide a couple examples of the data to be collected for energy equity? So, so the energy equity part is it's a combination of data collected in the field as well as sociodemographic equity that is place-based. So this is going into a discussion of choosing the sample plans. We had a choice in both states of approximately 10 different sample plans, and we created state-specific equity analysis procedures that took into account a variety of potential equity impacts, including poverty rate, percent of the population where English was not their first language. In Louisiana, the distance from an EPA identified source pollution site. Looking at my friends, what were some of the
housing burden, cost of home, medium income, cost of homes in the nearby vicinity.
Yeah, in case y'all didn't hear that, housing burden, transportation burden. One of the new ones we added was percent change in permit pulls. thinking that certain areas are growing really fast, which might put a strain on the permitting offices. So that really helped us to sort through the sampling plans and identify ones that we thought had a larger potential, I would say, impacts from these equity metrics. In terms of the field data, some of the things that we will inspect will have to do with air quality measures that are not typically required to be collected here, but maybe code measures, may not be code measures. Those are things that we collected in a South Carolina field study that we just finished last time. We were also collecting data on is the house all electric or not all electric, which impacts the energy burden over time. There will be a report coming soon, but there was a list of 5 or 6 different field-based measures that we collected. We do not collect information on actual individuals on site. If that's part of where the question was going. Do we have a general pitch? Yes. And I'm probably doing a really poor job of it right here. But yes, we do have a general pitch, and training will be available. Training from PNNL will be available to the selected teams. Okay. Is the data being collected exclusively through spreadsheets, field apps, or is there some kind of modeling software? So the data collection teams can use whatever tools want to collect the data. You know, I understand a lot of you probably have apps that you use to collect data, and that's fine, as long as you can then put that in to that spreadsheet that we showed a small little snippet of, because we need you to send us the spreadsheet. And I know that's, you know, that's probably not nobody loves an Excel spreadsheet, but we need the data in that Excel spreadsheet, because there's another step that happens with the team that is going to do the data analysis, and they're going to do the energy modeling, and they suck it out of the Excel spreadsheet. Okay, will equipment be provided, especially for air quality? So we are not we're not leaving any equipment in the house. We are not measuring air quality. SEEA is not providing equipment. Our expectation is that the field staff will have calibrated blower doors and duct test equipment, and that's the only testing that will be required. Measuring tape, probably. Any list of tools needed to take around. So again, on the final inspections, a blower door and duct leakage test equipment. Any other questions? So there's a question, can we provide a copy of the data collection spreadsheet? It is in the process of being updated. We can provide a copy of the spreadsheet that we have previously used, and that will allow you to understand the mechanics of it. we can put that on our website and also email it out to everyone who is an attendee of this conference, if that is helpful. Just understand that it will be updated by the time that we start this study. Will there be a more detailed training in the future? Yes, absolutely. We, both SEEA and PNNL, will collaborate on a more detailed training. It would probably be a day-long virtual training, probably virtual training, unless there was a desire for an in-person training. Okay, so there's a question about the budget. Should we budget for inspections of 140 homes? So budget for 70 pre-drywall inspections. So that is just a walkthrough, eyeball, take some pictures inspection, and then 70 final inspections. Again, walk through eyeball and do a blower door test and duct pressure tests or duct leakage tests. It's a good question. Any assessment of ventilation strategies? This is going to be one of the things that I think SEEA is going to add. That is not a requirement, and we will probably collaborate with the data teams on what that looks like in terms of what we ask for on our form. But to give you a sense, in South Carolina, because everything depends on what's the code in the state, and are you looking at, first you want to ask the question, is the home meeting the code? And then you can start asking questions about, are they doing anything above code? So in South Carolina, we asked if all the bathrooms had bath fans that are vented to outside, and we asked if the kitchen had a kitchen range hood that was vented to outside. In Georgia and Louisiana, we'll have different questions that we ask. There's a question, do you recommend an average number to the team? I'm guessing that's an average budget number. And I don't. That is up to you. If I misunderstood the question, please let me know. I think we may have run out of questions. Give it one more minute. Oh, here we go. Sorry, I still don't understand the question about the average number. Okay, there's a question. Will the remaining time be for data collection, or will there be some time out of the year that needs to be spent on stakeholder meetings or other things? How much time will the data collection team really have for collection? So we've already started, especially in Louisiana, socializing the project and doing the stakeholder engagement. We're a little further behind in Georgia. So, yeah, and so we want to get moving as quickly as we can, is what I can tell you about that. And we also will have a team of people aside from the data collection team working in both states on the stakeholder engagement. Now, it never hurts to have the data collection team also attend some of these stakeholder engagement meetings so that they, meet face to face with some of the stakeholders. They hear the questions firsthand and concerns of the stakeholders. But that wouldn't necessarily be a requirement to attend all those meetings. Someone has asked, will the code convention in Louisiana be before or after the collection team has been chosen? What's the date of the code convention? September 18th is the date. My hope is that we will have a data collection team chosen in Louisiana before that convention. It's in Baton Rouge. I know it seems like it's tomorrow. Seems that way to us too. And it's not a requirement for the team to attend. It's a suggestion if the timing works out. Give it one more minute. If you're lying in bed tonight and you think of a question, you can send it into that fieldstudy@sealliance.org email address, and we'll put it in an FAQ Excel document and post it on our website. Well, I want to thank everybody for the great questions and for joining us here today. I look forward to all your responses. And yeah, thanks again. I'm excited to get rolling in Louisiana